Hello, everyone, and this week we're looking at in personality trait development, stability, and change across the lifespan. We're also looking at the biology of the trait perspective in personality psychology. There's just a couple of quick points I wanted to make about this week's readings. The first is that one of the most important points, one of the most important takeaways from this whole chapter is right up front is the rank order consistency or rank order stability in traits. What does that mean? The idea is that, let's say you're the shyest kid in the first grade, 20 years later, fast forward 20 years, let's say you're now in college, in your freshman class, you may have changed a lot. You may have become a lot more extroverted than you were in the first grade. But odds are, you're still the most shy freshman in your freshman class in college, or among the small group of people you're with. In other words, while people's traits can increase or decrease across time, compared to other people, your rank order, where you stand compared to others, may stay the same because other people are increasing their extroversion or diminishing their shyness or increasing their conscientiousness too. Most humans increase in conscientiousness as they get older, especially into the adult years. So you may be kind of sloppy or messy as a little kid, but as you get older and you become an adult, you're much more conscientious. So your personality's changed, right? Well, sort of, because everyone else has changed as well. Everyone else is kind of maybe sloppy or messy as a little kid, and as they get older and become an adult, they become more conscientious too. So who was more conscientious than someone else? Well, that's the part that stays continuous throughout the lifespan. So this idea, it's kind of a complicated, tricky idea for the trait perspective in psychology, which asks the question, can we change? Does personality change? Well, sort of a yes, sort of a no. The yes part is, yeah, your scores can change. You can become more conscientious or more extroverted over the decades. So on the one hand, yeah, personality's changing. But on the other hand, you compared to other people, your ranking may not change. In fact, it's likely to be the same. So you're less extroverted than other people when you're 10 years old. You're going to be less extroverted than other people when you're 20 years old. You may be more extroverted from 20 than you were at 10, but compared to others, that ranking hasn't changed. That's one of the most important takeaways from this material on trait development and trait stability and change. And really, we can ask, well, does your personality change according to the Freudian perspective or the humanistic perspective or the behavioral perspective? Is Funder, the author of your textbook, is he doing that? No. He's asking from the trait perspective, does your personality change across a lifespan or does it stay the same? And what he's doing is he's reflecting the approach most personality psychologists do today. When we ask these questions about change in personality, it's almost the easiest way to answer this question is by looking at traits. You've only got 5 scores. You've all taken the Big 5 test. So it's almost the easiest way to look at this is by looking at your traits rather than looking at your dreams or your unconscious or the other parts of personality that we'll be studying later in the course. That's one major point that I wanted to bring to your attention, that the trait perspective is what we look at more than any other perspective when looking at personality change. And to answer the question of personality change, we have to look at this rank order consistency question. The other major point from this chapter looks at Dan McAdams' theory on narrative identity. You only get 2 or 3 pages in the chapter, but it's a huge area in psychology. And I ask you this, to look at yourself, look at your own personality, describe yourself to someone else, and try to not do it using McAdams' framework. And in a nutshell, his theory is we all think of ourselves in terms of a story, a beginning and a middle and an end, where we are the protagonist. We are the hero in this story. And bad things happen to the heroes and good things happen to the heroes. And what he's arguing is that we all think of ourselves in terms of a narrative, that is a story. That personality development is best understood in terms of storytelling. All cultures everywhere love stories. All cultures everywhere have a mythology. And some people say that America doesn't have a mythology. I don't know, a lot of people seem to know a lot about Star Wars or Twilight. Maybe our mythology doesn't last as long as the ancient Greeks, but I think there was a case to be made that every culture, including American modern culture, has this mythology or this storytelling narrative structure. So the idea of the actor, the agent, the author, these are the three kinds of ways of thinking of yourself as you get older, that we think of ourselves in terms of these narratives, these stories, and that stories have a theme. There may be a redemption theme is one that he saw big time in a lot of people, that something, you have a kind of basically normal childhood, then something bad happens to you, and then you overcome it, and there's a redemptive, you're now a changed person, and you're even better or stronger, or you're at least different now because of that bad experience. So that's another fascinating way of looking at personality. It's not a whole personality theory, but it's a way of looking at personality that kind of connects to a lot of people today. Last point, and then I'm done. You may have noticed that I filleted out a lot of the material from the next chapter on biological or anatomical psychology for personality. There are two reasons for that. The first is Funder himself admits about halfway through the chapter on brain anatomy and personality that there's so many different findings. It's kind of hard to organize them and collect them. It's kind of a huge grocery list of, well, this part of the way you think is in this part of the brain, and that way, this part of the way that you feel is in that part of the brain. And well, we already knew that your personality is located in your brain. So getting more specific about what part of your brain is more dominant for some areas of personality doesn't really tell us much more than what we already knew. I think Funder kind of teases this out for us. And frankly, I'm not that concerned that you memorize all the material from the biology chapter. You're free to read it. But what I wanted you to focus on are specific areas of brain anatomy and brain chemistry that are related to the big five traits. And once again, when we look at personality, this time in terms of brain anatomy, we relate it to the trait theory of psychology. It really is kind of a dominant approach to personality in modern day psychology. Whether you're looking at developmental psychology, what we just talked about, or whether we're talking about physiological psychology, a lot of it focuses on relating serotonin to extroversion or neuroticism, or dopamine to other personality traits. The idea that chemicals can be related to particular personality traits. One other area I did want to finally point out is that the last section in the anatomy or biology portion of our trait material focuses on gene-environment interactions. And that's the part that's on the one hand fascinating and really, I think, honest to what's going on in the interplay between biology and personality. On the other hand, it's kind of frustrating because how vague it is. And this is the idea of the gene-environment interaction. And what this states basically is that environments shape our biology. And our biology, our genes, shape how we act in those environments. The catch is we don't just end up in environments. We choose some environments, or we avoid other environments. So based on our DNA. So our genes kind of evoke out or bring out certain environments, and our genes also encourage us to go into certain environments. And once we're in those environments, they strengthen those personality traits. So let's just say, for argument's sake, you're kind of a quiet, studious, timid, introverted kind of person. And so you're more inclined to spend time in a library studying than you are at some loud, raucous party. Well, going into a library, which is a quiet environment, a reading, introverted environment, over and over and over again is going to strengthen those aspects of your genes, those aspects of your DNA that made you that way in the first place. So what made you kind of an introverted, low extroversion score person? Was it your genes? Well, yes. Was it your environment? Well, yes. But the genes and environment are acting on each other. So I think this is the most honest, it's a more complicated, but it's the most honest way of reflecting on the relationship between biology and personality. What's frustrating there is there's no simple gene for anything, being studious or quiet or introverted or extroverted, and there's no library gene either. So these challenges, it's a great framework, a conception for thinking about how biology and personality come together. It doesn't yield a lot of specific, hard answers or solutions that allow us to predict the relationship, or really control for the relationship between personality and biology. That doesn't mean it's not true, it just means it's complicated. And I think that's kind of a good note to end on for this week. I look forward to reading your posts this week on can personality change or not? Can people change or not? Looking forward to that. See you next time.